the end of the 19th century, the United States was a nation in transformation. The scars of the Civil War still marked the land, and the promise of freedom and equality remained distant for many. It was a time when the fate of a black woman born to former slaves seemed sealed by poverty, racial segregation, and gender inequality. But one woman, determined to defy all odds, dared to change her destiny and the future of countless generations to come after her. This is the story of Sarah Breedlove, better known as Madam C.J. Walker. Chapter 1. The Beginning. Sarah was born in 1867 on a cotton plantation in Louisiana. The daughter of former slaves, she grew up in a world that was just beginning to grasp the meaning of freedom. Her childhood was marked by unimaginable hardships. At 7, she was already an orphan, forced to live with her older sister. The work was grueling and life unforgiving. The wounds left by slavery were still palpable and hope seemed like a distant word. But something inside Sarah burned with intensity and unwavering determination. She knew that education would be the key to her freedom, but opportunities were limited. She married at 14, partly to escape her brother-in-law's abuse, and by 20, she was already a mother. However, her marriage was marked by violence, and after the death of her first husband, Sarah was forced to start over as a young widow with a small daughter to raise. She moved to St. Louis, where she worked as a laundress, earning mere dollars a week. Despite the misery, she refused to let her circumstances define her life. She dreamed of something greater, even though, at the time, those dreams seemed impossible. Chapter 2. The Transformation. Life began to change in unexpected ways. At the turn of the century, like many African-American women of the time, Sarah began suffering from a common condition: hair loss. The harsh working conditions, combined with the lack of proper hair care products, resulted in severe scalp damage. Desperate to find a solution, Sarah started experimenting with various homemade remedies, none of which produced the desired effect. It was then that an idea began to form in her mind. She had the opportunity to work with a woman named Annie Malone, a successful businesswoman in the hair product industry. Annie became a mentor to Sarah, and through this experience, she began to understand the true potential of the beauty market. Armed with courage, Sarah started developing her own formulas based on years of research and experimentation. But it was when she married Charles Joseph Walker, an advertising salesman, that her life took a new turn. He encouraged her to take on a new identity, Madam C.J. Walker, and take her business to the next level. Chapter 3. The Birth of an Empire. Now under the name Madam C.J. Walker, she began selling her products door to door. The wonderful hair grower promised to revitalize damaged hair and stimulate growth, something no other company was offering at the time. Madam Walker wasn't just selling products, she was selling hope. Her presentations were not just demonstrations, but passionate speeches about empowerment, financial independence, and racial pride. Her approach was revolutionary. She understood that her clients, black women, were not just looking to improve their appearance, they were seeking dignity in a world that constantly oppressed them. The streets of St. Louis, where she had once worked as a laundress, now became the stage for her first victories. Soon, the demand for her products grew. Realizing that her ambitions surpassed the limits of one city, Madam Walker moved to Denver, Colorado, and later to Indianapolis, where she established her factory and business headquarters. Her business began to flourish, and with it, her reputation as an innovator. Madam Walker didn't just build a company, she built a following. African-American women from all over the country signed up to become Walker beauty agents, selling her products and learning business skills. She was creating something that transcended beauty. She was creating a network of economic empowerment for black women, something unprecedented in American history. Chapter 4. The Legacy of Madam Walker. As her fortune grew, so did her philanthropy. Madam Walker understood the weight of her position and used her power to help her community. She donated large sums of money to civil rights organizations like the NAACP and to schools and institutions that provided education to the African American community. Her political activism was as strong as her commitment to business. She believed that individual success only made sense if it was used to uplift others, and so she funded movements that fought for racial equality and social justice. But despite all her success, Madam Walker was not immune to personal hardships. Her marriage to Charles Walker eventually fell apart as the pressures of growing her business mounted. However, this did not stop her from continuing her journey. She traveled the country, giving lectures and promoting her legacy of entrepreneurship and female empowerment. Chapter 5: An Endless Future. The story of Madam C.J. Walker is a story of triumph. From a child born on a slave plantation who lost her parents at a young age, to a woman who built an empire and became America's first self-made black millionaire, her life was marked by resilience, the desire to create something bigger than herself, and a commitment to helping her community thrive. And so, her story continues. Because Madam C.J. Walker's legacy didn't end with her death in 1919. It lives on in the countless businesses founded by black women inspired by her vision. It lives in civil rights movements and in the pride of the African American community. It lives in every step a woman takes toward financial independence and the recognition of her own worth. Madam C.J. Walker's story is one that will never end because she paved the way for future generations to write their own destinies. With every new entrepreneur that rises, with every young person who dares to dream big, Madam Walker's spirit continues to shape the future. As she herself said, "I had to make my own living and my own opportunity, but I made it." Don't sit down and wait for the opportunities to come. Get up and make them. Chapter 6: The Awakening of a Silent Revolution. As Madam C.J. Walker's empire grew, something profound began to happen within African American communities across the country. She wasn't just changing how women took care of their hair. She was awakening within them a sense of self-worth and power that had been suppressed by centuries of oppression. In beauty salons and homes where Walker's products were sold, the conversations went beyond hairstyles or hair care techniques. They became conversations about dignity, about recognition, and about the possibility of owning their own destinies. Madam Walker understood this impact better than anyone. She knew that each jar of her wonderful hair grower represented more than just a hair treatment. It was a symbol of personal transformation. And this movement wasn't loud. It was a silent revolution, led by everyday women who, day by day, found in beauty a way to resist, to reaffirm their place in the world. Over time, her agents became known not just as product sellers, but as true leaders in their communities. They taught other women to take pride in their appearance, regardless of the Eurocentric beauty standards that dominated society. Instead of trying to conform to what was imposed upon them, they began to create their own standards, based on strength, authenticity, and black beauty. This movement, which began almost unnoticed, started to spread. Madam Walker became a force not only in business, but in culture. Her presence was requested at conventions, events, and debates about the future of the African American community. She was a woman whose voice echoed not only in corporate boardrooms, but also in the streets and neighborhoods, where her message of self-sufficiency and pride resonated like a call to action. Chapter 7: A Dream of Education and Prosperity. Madam C.J. Walker never let her mind rest. Even with her growing success, she continued to dream. And her greatest dream was to create a training institute that was much more than a beauty school. She wanted this space to be a learning center for black women, where they could acquire not only practical skills, but also an education that empowered them to be leaders in all areas of life. She began envisioning what would later become the Walker Beauty College, an institution dedicated to training women not only in the arts of hair and beauty, but also in business principles, leadership, and community organization. The classes weren't just about how to style hair, but also about how to manage finances, build professional relationships, and create their own opportunities. The graduates of Walker Beauty College, who soon spread across the country, were the seeds of a new generation of entrepreneurs. Armed with the tools and knowledge provided by Madam Walker, each of them became a key piece in building a more equal and prosperous future for the African American community. What once seemed impossible, Black women running their own businesses, being financially independent, and leading others, was now becoming a reality thanks to the vision of a woman who refused to accept the limits society had imposed on her. Chapter 8. The Weight of the Crown. But like anyone who wears a crown, Madam C.J. Walker also felt the weight of responsibility. The pressure of leading a growing empire while facing racial and gender barriers was immense. She knew that every step she took was opening doors for other women, but she was also challenging the status quo of a deeply segregated society. Her business victories were often overshadowed by the personal challenges she faced. Madam Walker's health began to decline over the years. The intense pace of travel, the rapid growth of her business, and countless responsibilities took their toll. But even in moments of exhaustion, she refused to give up. She knew there was still much work to be done, many dreams to be realized. She knew that if she stopped, she risked seeing her legacy weaken. It was during this time that she began to think more deeply about the future. What if something happened to her? Who would continue her work? Who would ensure that the empire she had built with such effort would survive and grow? These questions haunted her mind. She understood that success was not an individual achievement, but something that needed to be sustained by a community. Chapter 9. The Power of Legacy. Madam Walker then began to focus on creating a legacy that would transcend her own life. She invested in training her daughter, A. Lilia Walker, and ensured that the foundations of her company were firmly established. Her vision wasn't just to build a profitable business, but to create an institution that could serve her community for generations. It was about leaving something that, even after her passing, would continue to inspire, to create opportunities, to empower Black women. In addition, she strengthened her connection with civil rights leaders and activists, understanding that economic success had to go hand in hand with social justice. More than ever, she believed that the financial empowerment of Black women was one of the most powerful ways to resist racial and gender oppression. She also expanded her philanthropic efforts, funding even more educational and community development projects. It wasn't enough for her to succeed. She wanted her community as a whole to have access to the opportunities that had been denied to them for so long. More than ever, Madam Walker saw herself as the guardian of a heritage greater than herself. Chapter 10. The Eternal Beginning. And so, Madam C.J. Walker's story continues with no end in sight. Her legacy is reflected not only in the beauty businesses that continue to thrive, but in every woman who, inspired by her example, dares to challenge the barriers imposed on them. The mark she left on the world cannot be erased, for it is etched in the hearts of every person she touched. With each new generation of Black female entrepreneurs, with every young woman who refuses to accept the limitations placed on her, Madam Walker's spirit is revived. Because in the end, her story is not about material wealth or business success. It's about the relentless fight for dignity, for freedom, and for the ability to dream. And that is a story that will never end, because it continues to be written one chapter at a time by all the women who follow the path she paved. And so, the story of Madam C.J. Walker lives on, vibrant and powerful, shaping the future with the same force with which she shaped the past. Chapter 11. Growth Beyond Borders. As time passed and Madam C.J. Walker's empire continued to expand, her impact became global. The name Madam Walker, which began to circulate among African American women in the United States, was now reaching other parts of the world. In Afro-Caribbean, African, and even European communities, women began to draw inspiration from her story. She became a universal symbol of resistance, not only for Black women, but for all women facing the adversities imposed by society. Madam Walker understood that she wasn't just building a beauty product company, she was challenging systems of oppression that had existed for centuries. In a world that still rejected the idea of black women occupying positions of power, Madam Walker not only claimed her place, but paved the way for others to follow. Her name transcended commerce. It became synonymous with transformation and hope for women who saw her as a beacon of possibilities. Chapter 12. The Price of Success. Despite her immense success, Madam C.J. Walker's life was never easy. The weight of being the first black female millionaire in the United States brought enormous responsibilities. The relentless pace of travel, lectures, and business management began to take a toll on her health. Yet she kept pushing forward, driven by her vision of a future where black women could thrive and have full control over their lives. There were moments of exhaustion, but she never let them bring her down. Her daughter, A'Lelia Walker, began to take on more responsibilities in the company. A'Lelia inherited her mother's tenacity and passion, while also bringing her own vision to the Walker empire, expanding operations and strengthening the brand's role as a cultural and social pillar in the African-American community. As her health declined, Madam Walker knew her time was running out, but this did not stop her from planning for the future. She prepared to leave a legacy far more powerful than any fortune, a legacy that would continue to empower future generations. Chapter 13. The Legacy That Lives On. Madam C.J. Walker passed away in 1919 at the age of 51 at her mansion in Irvington, New York. Though her death came prematurely, her impact extended far beyond her life. She was buried as a pioneer, but her spirit lived on in the countless women who, inspired by her example, continued to fight for equality, civil rights, and financial independence. Her daughter, A'Lelia, took over leadership of the empire and kept her mother's vision alive. Under her direction, the Walker Company continued to grow and adapt to social and economic changes. But Madam C.J. Walker's true legacy was not just her company. It lived on in the movements that emerged to challenge racial segregation, in the fight for civil rights, and in the transformation of the role of black women in society. Over time, Madam Walker's name became synonymous with innovation, leadership, and strength. She was not just the first female millionaire in the United States. She was a visionary who believed in the power of education, self-sufficiency, and entrepreneurship as paths to freedom. Chapter 14. A Story That Never Ends. The life of Madam C.J. Walker is a story that will never truly end because her impact continues to resonate. Her example inspires new generations of women to believe in themselves and seek their independence, even when the world seems against them. Her teachings that hard work, education, and self-belief are the keys to liberation are just as relevant today as they were more than a century ago. Madam Walker transformed not only her own life, but the lives of thousands of other women, creating a network of support and opportunity that endures to this day. In every beauty salon, in every business founded by a black woman, in every civil rights movement, her legacy lives. Her story has no end because it continues to be rewritten by all the women who, inspired by her example, refuse to accept the limits imposed by society. Chapter 15. The Call for the Future. Madam C.J. Walker taught us that the future is something we create, not something we simply wait for. Every woman who dares to challenge expectations, every person who refuses to be defined by the limitations of the past, is helping to build that future. And now, that journey of transformation can be yours too. Throughout this story, you've seen how one woman, born in a time of extreme oppression, managed to shape her destiny and become one of the most iconic figures in American history. But her journey doesn't have to stop here. Just as Madam Walker never settled, always seeking more, always building something bigger, you too can do the same. Call to action, a special invitation for you. If you've been inspired by this story of resilience, perseverance, and transformation, I have a special invitation for you. We've created an exclusive ebook that delves even deeper into Madam C.J. Walker's journey with life and business lessons that can help you transform your own path. In this ebook, you'll find strategies that Madam Walker used to build her empire, along with practical insights on how to apply these principles to your own life. Get your copy of the ebook, The Secrets of Madam C.J. Walker, now and discover how you can use the wisdom of this pioneer to achieve your own dreams. The link is available in the description of this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow more inspiring stories like this one. I would love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below, sharing what impacted you most about Madam Walker's journey. Your interaction is crucial for us to keep bringing content that inspires and transforms. Chapter 16, the story continues. This journey doesn't end here. Just as Madam C.J. Walker shaped the future with her vision, her story is still being written by each of us who believe in the power of self-sufficiency, education, and change. This is just the beginning of a new era of transformation. And remember, as Madam Walker always said, don't wait for opportunities, go out and create your own. The story of Madam C.J. Walker is a living story, and you could be the next one to write it. Get the ebook, The Secrets of Madam C.J. Walker, now and transform your life. Subscribe to the channel for more inspiring content and stories of triumph. Leave a comment about what you loved most about Madam Walker's journey and how this story impacted you. Together, we can continue to write stories of transformation.